The Dolphins and Steelers swung a big trade on Monday, and we're going to be talking about the Dolphins and Steelers today, but not necessarily about the trade. NFL Spotlight starts now. Welcome in. It is the Wednesday, July 2 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. Yesterday was a Tuesday. We had our special Spotlight guest of the week. We were joined by the Houston Texans' newly minted assistant general manager, Chris Blanco, somebody who's been around the NFL for over a decade. A large portion of it has been with the Houston Texans. And of course, that is one of the more exciting young rosters in the NFL, a team that has made the playoffs in each of the last 2 years. As a young quarterback in CJ Stroud, they've won playoff games each of the last 2 years. And this year, going into the season, they are looking to take the next big step. So if you've not heard that conversation with Chris, his path, his journey, and of course the Texans, go back one episode and check it out. On the very end of this episode, we are going to announce that we're going to take a little break over here from the show during this quieter portion of the offseason, even though it's not always quiet like we learned the other day. Steelers, Dolphins, big trade. We spoke about it yesterday. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on? How's everything going?
A little bit slow to the draw there, trying to get the button back over there. Things are good. Yeah, I love that you're saying like, oh, we're gonna take a break. There's zero chance that news doesn't break and that you guys won't be seeing our faces pop up. But we'll keep the feed going with some other stuff and some fun content that maybe you haven't seen yet. But we got to talk about some other throwbacks here because there's a guy that retired and he's decided, you know what? I'm not done with football yet. I'm feeling like I need to come back. I need a resurgence here. And that player is Darren Waller, also known as Darren Waller, the musician, and Kelsey Plum's ex-husband. He has decided he's going to be unretiring from the game of football, coming back. And he's not only going to be coming back, he's going to be playing for a different team. He has been traded by the New York Giants to the Miami Dolphins. The Giants are also sending a conditional 2027 round pick. And the Giants, in turn, are going to be getting a 2026 sixth round pick. Waller has been missing football. You know, this is going to potentially be a little bit of a change of pace for the Miami Dolphins. They just shipped out their tight end, Jonnu Smith, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we have already discussed. So if you're the Dolphins and you're looking at Darren Waller, who was former, very good offensive weapon, they were able to get a lot of production out of the receiving game with him. Do you think that the Dolphins' goal is to try to take that production that they now lost with Jonnu Smith and replace it with Waller? And if so, how well do you imagine that's going to work out?
I mean, there's so many ripple effects to that trade that happened the other day. The big Steelers and Dolphins trade, like we said a moment ago. And one of it was, like I said yesterday, the Dolphins never really wanted to trade Jonnu Smith. That was more of the agent, Drew Rosenhaus, trying to get more money for his client after a Pro Bowl season and being one of the most important targets in that offense. And the Dolphins really had not engaged in any serious contract talks. And like I said yesterday on the show, when the Steelers and Dolphins did that deal, I don't think Minka Fitzpatrick was going to be in that deal for Jalen Ramsey if Jonnu Smith was not included. So if Miami wanted to get Minka, they had to give up Jonnu, and they didn't. And during that process, clearly, they started looking around the NFL to try to find the next tight end for this roster. And as we know, from all these front offices, and we've had many executives on the show, they leave no stone unturned, and that includes going out there and talking to potentially a guy who is retired. And here's the wrinkle of all of it: Jonnu Smith's agent is Drew Rosenhaus. Darren Waller's agent is Drew Rosenhaus. So I'm sure he told him, listen, if you're going to trade Jonnu, I got somebody else for you, and he's willing to come to Miami. And that's basically what happened over here, where they moved on from Jonnu, and then Darren comes in. And really, you look at the Dolphins depth chart, once Jonnu Smith was out of the team, the other tight ends that were left there were guys like Pharaoh Brown and Julian Hill and Tanner Connor, some guys who I think most NFL fans, even if you're a diehard, have never heard of. So if that's the case, they had to address it some way, somehow. And this was their way. And we all know about Darren Waller retiring. You know, his last season was with the Giants. And I remember it like yesterday, his August and July with the Giants training camp, mini camp, he looked like he was going to take the league, go crazy, be one of the best tight ends in football, have a great rapport with Daniel Jones, and it just never happened. And he dealt with a hamstring injury before week one, and it really just never felt like he fit in over there. And he recently revealed on a podcast that it was like a week 5 game when Tyrod Taylor was the quarterback, where he was being used as a fullback, and that's where in his head he was like, "I'm done playing in the NFL. What am I doing with my life?" But clearly, he wanted back, and he is going to have a shot over here to potentially be the tight end one for the Miami Dolphins. That's really all you could ask for. The contract numbers was announced as 1 year up to $5 million. The up to, once again, is doing a lot of work. This is a very, very incentive laden contract over here. So he's really going to have to earn it. But when you look at the competition he's going to have a real shot over here of making the roster and potentially having an impact for this team.
And that's pretty impressive. I mean, you see guys like Gronk that have come out of retirement and they've taken over as the tight end one. The opportunity to be slotted into an offense that really is going to be led by two receivers that are primarily based on speed with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. There's a real opportunity for him to actually have some value beyond just what the fantasy football owners are probably thinking, right?
I mean, if you look at what Jonnu Smith did last year, I know the Dolphins were not that relevant at the end of the year. I mean, they had this very, very slim shot of making the playoffs, but not many fans were really paying much attention to them. Jonnu Smith became like the number one target on that team. Like, even though they had Tyreek Hill, even though they have Jalen Waddle, even though they have all these great players on the team, he was the guy. Like, his career was kind of revived last year. Not that he was ever a bad player, but like he went to a whole new stratosphere last year. So if he's going to be used in that same way, there's maybe a shot over here for Darren Waller to have that potential. Again, we're not going to jump so crazy over here. I mean, he literally missed the year this past season. We don't know what shape he is. The reports out there is that he's doing well from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint, from all of that. That's great to hear. But we'll see what ends up happening when the pads come on and if he really, really wants to play. Because like he said, and he said it in his own words and it was on the record, he was completely checked out during his time with the Giants and he was done with football. So we'll see now when it's going to be that crazy Miami Heat during training camp and you're wearing the pads. Do you really want to do this? So we're going to find out if this is really what he wants to do. But he made it clear and his agent made it clear that he's going to unretire and only do it for one team, and it's for the Dolphins. And they gave up a real draft pick. Like, I know everyone rolls their eyes at a 6th-round pick, but that is a 6th-round pick, which they shouldn't, that's a valuable pick for some
It's
teams.
more than
So
what you get for a lot of guys that have been playing in football the last year.
exactly. So the Giants got a free 6th-round pick out of this. The 7th-round pick is conditional, which is interesting to me. The other one going back, so there's a chance it doesn't even happen. So they gave up a valuable asset over here to try to bring him in because they really needed a tight end. And there's nobody else really available. So they're hoping he does well, and we'll see what happens here once they report later this month.
It's a pretty crazy turn of events to see him back into the NFL. I've always been a fan of him going back to his struggles through life to be able to get to where he is,
Yeah.
drugs, being with a bunch of different teams, his resurgence that he had with the Raiders. And like you said, this has got to be just like a nice little thing for the Giants, right? Just to be like, yeah, great pick. I don't know. We got something going on here. Do you think though that the Dolphins, like, it just feels very much like they're just still trying to figure things out. It doesn't seem like there's a very strong direction here. And like this is just like a throw a dart, hope that it hits down the center, and then just kind of run with it. Like, do you feel like there really is a stronger direction that's been taking place here that maybe we're all just missing?
I mean, I said it on yesterday's show. It was very brief on the back end, but this is a team in the middle, not necessarily a bad team that's rebuilding, but not necessarily a good team that could truly compete, at least from what I see. It's a bit of a rebuild on the fly. That's really what it is. And, there were some decisions made last year that they probably would love to take back. The Jalen Ramsey extension, the Tyreek Hill, giving him more money, letting guys like Andrew Van Ginkel and Robert Hunt and even Christian Wilkins, all of them leave the building. Like, that sets you back a little bit. It just does. And, they had Javon Holland leave this offseason. Like, this is a team that you can't really tell where they are. And now it feels like they're kind of rebuilding on the fly, like I said. And it's cool you bring back Minka Fitzpatrick, but You still have Tyreek Hill, who God knows what's going to happen with him. Hopefully, everything will be good, but you really don't know if everything he could say or he could tweet or he'll go to the media. His agent is also Juros announced, and there's a long history there with him and receivers, whether it's Terrell Owens or Antonio Brown. You never know where anything could go with that guy. So there's a lot of moving parts over here. They paid the quarterback Tua, they paid Jalen Waddle, they still have this big Bradley Chubb contract. Like they're just truly a team in the middle. So whenever you go out there and get a Darren Waller, who is clearly on the back end of his career, you're proving you're in the middle. Like you could have gone and developed some guys. You could have done something like that. Like no, you could have kept John Smith. It was no. That's kind of where they are. So it's a weird position, but big picture over here. There were people in the NFL who thought the GM Chris Greer would have been done before this offseason started. They kept him. Stephen Ross put out a statement. But this is truly a big year for head coach and GM where it's going to be hard to win, but they have to be able to, I would say, get to at least 8 wins. And that's the way I look at it. And if not, there's going to be some questions there at the end of the year with where this roster is and where they are as an organization.
Well, one of those moves that we've already talked about a little bit here was sending Jonnu Smith out to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have been very active in their own right for the moves that they've been making. One of the moves they have not made yet, though, is figuring out a contract extension with TJ Watt, their star pass rusher, going to be getting a statue of himself outside the stadium maybe one day. A very, very effective player, even as he begins to age a little bit by NFL terms. He wants that deal. The Pittsburgh Steelers have reportedly not been offering exactly what he wants. He has not shown up to the team during the offseason workouts. Obviously, we're on a break right now, but the league is starting to take notice about everything that's been going on. And there's reports that maybe some teams are like, you know what, maybe we should let's just give the Steelers a shout, see what they're thinking about TJ Watt. What's the latest that you're hearing on this situation? Are we closer to a resolution? And is any of this trade conversation really anything, or is it just noise to try to speed up the process on the Watt end?
Yeah, I would call it more noise to speed it up a little bit. There's no way the Steelers are going to trade TJ Watt, especially considering everything they've done this offseason with this all-in mentality from Aaron Rodgers and DK and Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith and Darius Slay. And then, of course, let's just trade our best player while doing no, it doesn't make any sense, right? So this is probably more of a tactic over here. And maybe teams have called, sure, but the Steelers are not answering those calls. That's the way it basically is right now. And the way I look at this, and we've said it before, we'll say it again. TJ Watt has been watching this entire offseason. There was obviously the Myles Garrett extension, which was $40 million per year. Prior to that, there was Max Crosby and Daniil Hunter, and there's other guys waiting like Micah Parsons, Aiden Hutchinson, Trey Hendrickson. It's the pass rush offseason this year, and TJ is part of that. But on top of it, he's also seen his own team, like we said yesterday, trade for DK Metcalf, give him $33 million per year, trade for Jalen Ramsey, give him a small raise, trade for Jonnu Smith, give him a 1 year, $12 million extension. It's like, since when are we a team that rewards people who are not here? That's kind of weird. Not that it's like it's cool that we have new players ready to compete, but your franchise cornerstone, your star, the guy who is arguably the face of the franchise, probably is, especially if no real quarterback there right now. What about me? Like, what's going on over here? And that's kind of been the problem the entire offseason. And we've said it before, we'll say it again. He's not going to take a deal that does not start with a four. It's got to be $40 million per year. And make no mistake about it, there's also this, I guess it's friendly competition with Myles Garrett. I would say Myles got $40 million per year. But if you recall, there was a game in November this past year, November 22, 2024, where the Browns beat the Steelers, I should say. And after the game, Myles Garrett did his post-game interview and literally sent a message to TJ Watt. And he said, I have a lot of respect for him, but I'm number one. That's from Edge One, the defensive player of the year. I'm the guy that runs through me. I'm sure TJ Watt heard that. Somebody sent me that clip earlier today. And TJ is like, yeah, you could think you're number one. Maybe you are number one, but I'm going to be number one when it comes to the overall edge rush rankings when it comes to getting paid. And if the Steelers are not going to get there, he's not going to accept any contract right now. So that's kind of where things stand. And they have been not close to that $40 million per year. And that's going to, he's not going to come or report until that thing gets figured out. And right now, they're literally just staring at each other like they've had all offseason long.
What is the situation in which the Steelers really think that this is going to be where they win? I don't see a situation in which they are the ones who walk away feeling like, we got the number that we want. That's just the nature of the NFL right now, right? These guys are all trying to one up each other. And if they're not trying to one up each other, they're trying to get as close as they possibly can. So if that Myles Garrett number is 40, shouldn't the Steelers be prepared for it to be about that number? Like what is it's crazy to say, but like what is the incentive for them in waiting on this? Because all it does is just create more frustration with the fans who are thinking the same thing that I just said. They're paying the other guys. Shouldn't they just fork over this? Like, they're not paying the quarterback. They're not doing this. Like, they're just going to have to bite the bullet.
Well, we had AJ Stevens of Athletes First on the show recently, and like he said, Ben, it's sometimes not even all about the average. The average is great, but there's other parts of a contract. There's the cash flow, there's the structure, there's a lot of different things over here that are also included. So there's a
But we know
scenario,
that
and
the
I don't know,
players care about that number, though.
they definitely care. And again, he's going to have to get the average that passes. That's part of it. And I don't know this for a fact, but there's a scenario where they've offered him the $40.1 million per year. But when you look at the structure and the cash flow, it's actually behind Myles Garrett. And that's the stuff that matters more to the agents and the player as well. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to all of this. I think the message is clear in Pittsburgh, but it's about the structure and it's about the details. And I'll just say this one more time over here. Also, the last time TJ Watt did an extension, that one also went all the way down to the wire. It was right before the season. So the Steelers have done this once before. The agent and the player knows how valuable the player is and what he is for the franchise and everything. And the fact that they are in a bit of an all-in window right now. So they're going to try to squeeze as much as they could over here. But there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to a contract, and that is also very important in all of this. If you look at the cash flow that Myles Garrett got, it's a strong one, and he's going to have to beat that also. So there's a lot of things over here. The way Pittsburgh structures contract, I don't want to get too into the weeds, but last time TJ Watt actually reset it because previously the only players who they give guaranteed money after year one historically used to be only quarterbacks. TJ Watt actually got that in his last contract. Are they going to do it again for a third contract guy? So there's a lot of questions here that have to be figured out. And to this point, it has not been figured out.
We'll have to see what happens. Like we talked about at the top of the show, going to take a little break here. I think I'm going to try to get some summer league action out in Vegas. Ari, I think you're going to just try to take a break, whatever that actually means for you with all the news that's always going on. We'll be here in case some news pops up, but I think for the most part, we're going to try to take a little bit of a breather.
That is the plan. It's the first time we've had a chance to do that since this show launched last July. So we're nearing the 1 year anniversary. It won't be that long, maybe a week and a half, but we will be back, and we will be back for sure. If there are any breaking news that requires an emergency episode, we will do that. So, as always, be on the lookout, be subscribed, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, wherever it is. And before we do go, I just do want to kind of go through the list of guests that we've had here on the show every single Tuesday. And it's been unbelievable what we've been able to do here since it started. The very first episode being Levante David, who I still believe is the most underrated player of the last decade plus. He was our very, very first guest here last July. And ever since then, we've had a nice combination of players, coaches, executives, media people. We've had an agent on this show, and just going through it, like Darren Rizzi, the special teams coordinator of the Saints last year, was a big part of the new kickoff rule. He's now back with Sean Payton in Denver. We had Ian Cunningham, the assistant general manager in Chicago, who's going to become a GM very soon in this league. Trey McBride last year was on the show. He became the highest paid tight end in football this year for a little bit. He was on the show before he became big time. We've had linebackers like TJ Edwards and Zaire Franklin and Bobby Okereke. We've had Hall of Famer and Rondé Barberos on the show. We've had guys like Chris Shea, who was just now promoted to the assistant GM in Kansas City. We've had Trey Smith and his sister Ashley Smith. Trey is going to get an extension here very, very soon, become the highest paid guard in all of football. We had Kirby Joseph before he became the highest paid safety in football. We had Xavier McKinney before he became a first team All-Pro safety. We had Trey Hendrickson before he's had this entire offseason saga go on. We've had Kevin Dotson, the Rams guard. We've had GMs like John Spytek and Monty Ossenfort. We've had guys like assistant GMs like a Chris Blanco, who was on this week, and many, many other people. Zach Allen, the Broncos defensive tackle, who also will be getting extended very soon. Brian Nettles, the Red Zone producer. Kevin Harlan, the legendary broadcaster. Kurt Menefee from Fox. We've had some unbelievable guests here on the show since we started, and a big thank you to everyone who's come on. A big thank you to Ben, who also does a lot of the work over here, the producing, the behind the scenes, all the graphics people, the 33rd team as a whole. A lot of people to thank over here over the last year for what we've been able to do.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun too. I mean, as much as we love coming in here and chopping it up about the daily news and stuff, the heart of this show really is those spotlight guests that we have on. And a lot of it goes into us just being able to try to reach out to these people, try to explain what the show's about, talking to agents, talking to former teammates, talking to this, that, and the other to be able to get these guys on. And we love hearing about names that, have popped up. We've got more guys in the pipeline, even though we're not going to be recording the daily episodes. I imagine we're still going to be doing some of the spotlight guest stuff. Even today, hearing from different marketing agents of, oh yeah, this person, they're interested. It's just a matter of getting it all recorded and stuff. And I think as we get closer to the season 2 and guys start reporting more back and they're back in the football mindset, we're hopefully going to have some more cool guests on. And, I think the impetus of this show too, when we first were talking about this, was the Levante David. And when we got Levante first off, and then every single guest we've spoken to from there, we're like, yeah, we tell them Levante, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. So we're definitely out there looking for more Levante Davids, and it's been a lot of fun working with you this past year.
Definitely. It's been a cool blend of guests, everyone from around the NFL. So many people involved in making this the greatest sport that we have in the United States. And frankly, this show started as just a audio thing, an Apple, Spotify thing. It became a YouTube thing during this entire portion. I think it was back in February. So it's been already 5 months. We've been on YouTube, which is crazy to think about. And
Which you need to hit
for
subscribe
people,
on, by the way. We need more YouTube subscribers. We're still doing that. We're getting that
make
up.
sure to do that for sure. But if you missed any of those interviews that we mentioned, there's so many other guys I didn't even mention, a Frankie Louvu, a Jonathan Allen. There is a playlist on YouTube where Ben uploaded all of them there. So go check it out. We have everything from Levante all the way down to Chris Blanco, the assistant GM of the Houston Texans. But that will do it here for the July 2 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. Like I said, if anything crazy pops off, we will be back here. But for now, we're going to take a small little hiatus, and we will be back here around mid-July. We will see you then.